Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. Today I have got a really short experience, so it won't go on too long this episode. I read the first sentence and I was pretty much sold. It's basically all about love, this one. So for me, it's what I like to have an experience. I also like to have a few details as well. I like them to go into specifics and discuss what a soul is and what that means and what that feels like. But for her, it's more about what that feels like and not exactly anything else. And for her, in this experience, it's all about love. So let's start reading it. This one is from Nichole on the ndearth.org website. I had gone in for a common routine surgery. I'm not sure what happened during the surgery as I was knocked out. All I know is I was suddenly running in a grassy field toward a giant sun. I remembered looking down at my legs and they were short to the ground. I was a child again. There was another child holding my hand and running beside me. It was a little blonde-haired boy with blue eyes. The most amazing part was a pure feeling of the most intense love I can barely describe. It was just wave after wave of pure love. It was within me. It was around me. It was everything. It felt like heartbeats of love, one wave of love after another. Yet there was love in the interim as well. Then the wave would come with even more and more love. It was endless, eternal, and complete. I had no fear whatsoever. I had no feeling other than love. I had no thought other than reaching the light. I felt pure happiness and joy. It was the most beautiful feeling that words could even come close to describing. The closest thing I can think of to relate to it on this earth would be the moment I brought my child into this world. That moment of pure, unconditional love that I'm sure most mothers and even some fathers have felt. Still, that is only but a small fraction of what I'm trying to explain here. Words seem so small and insignificant in comparison to the experience. So I'm running towards this massive sun, experiencing total acceptance and total love. I knew that nothing earthly mattered anymore, and I had a complete sense of peace about everything I had ever done. I just wanted to keep running toward the light. Then I suddenly heard my name being called from behind me. I stopped and paused for a moment and knew I had a choice. I could keep going forward or I could go back to where I was. I never remembered making that choice, however. But the next thing I knew, there were doctors standing over me, frantically repeating my name. Nichole, stay with us, Nichole. And then the pain came. The pain in my body was so intense, I could barely stand it. I believe they must have cut off the medication at some point, and they were trying to frantically sew me back up together quickly. I had never experienced physical pain in my life since that moment. Thank God. I felt my body was in a vice and they were squeezing it tighter and tighter. I do remember laying there and saying aloud, over and over, "No, let me go back. I want to go back," with tears streaming down my face. I was so upset and felt for the longest time that I never got to make the choice, that the doctors made this decision for me, and I was so mad at them. I think I spent many years depressed and angry because I believed that they robbed me of my graduation date from this planet. I truly believed for so long I was meant to leave on that day. I could not understand why I would be given a glimpse of something so beautiful only to have to return to such pain. Pain in that moment and pain in the disillusionment of the world in general. I was only 25 years old at the time, but I believed I was done here and that I belonged where the love was. I have always been a tender heart, and the violence and greed on this planet seem so foreign to me and ridiculously unnecessary. After this experience, it was damn near unbearable for me to witness it anymore. It has taken me 20 years to realize that I did indeed make the choice to stay. I know if I chose to leave, no doctor could have prevented that. I believed I was given a glimpse so that I could carry on knowing what we truly are made of. To reinforce my conviction in the power of love and knowing that it's all there really is and all that really matters. I think I was given this blessing so I could share it with others. I've read other stories so similar to my own, with slight variations in the visual experience. I'm sure due to our life paths and our personal conditioning, the stories are different for that reason. However, the feelings of love seem to be a common theme. A return to love is no cliche. It is truly love we are made of. It is where we come from, where we will return when we are done with this body. I know we come here to anchor love in this place, to increase this love, to remember what we are is love. But as to why we actually choose to stay or come here in the first place, I do not know. Today, I work so hard to raise the awareness of how pure collective love is, of how powerful it is. It is what the entire universe is made of. We can call it anything we want, like God, Allah, Jesus, or Muhammad. But the name is all the same under the word love. Now I try to help others to just be love. My daily mantra is, I love, therefore I am. I look forward to my final return to love, but in the meantime, I hope to share the love I touch for a moment there with the people I love here. That's the end of Nichole's experience. So not a long one, not really a lot to analyze there. It's all about the love, isn't it? So let's go through this from the beginning again. So she's going in for common surgery. She doesn't say what sort of surgery it is. Again, I like these experiences that kind of jump straight into it. You don't need a in-depth analysis of what causes them to lose their consciousness or to make their heart stop breathing beating or to stop breathing. It's gets straight into it in this experience. So she says she's running through a grassy field towards a giant sun. So for her, there's no tunnel, there's no sensation of floating up out of her body and looking back down. She's in this body in 1 minute, and the next she's in this other dimension. So she doesn't go into a lot of detail as to what these landscapes look like. I can find numerous examples of experiences that go into a lot more depth as to what these beautiful scenes, these heaven-like dimensions look like when a person leaves their body. But for her, all she says, short and sweet and straight to the point, she's running through this beautiful grassy field towards a giant sun. She remembers she looks down at her legs and she sees she's a child again. So a little bit unusual there. You don't see that very often. Someone reviewing what their body looks like and noticing that they're a kid again. Often when someone crosses over into this other dimension, they're greeted by other beings that are dead relatives, and they often appear in forms that are different to when they died, but never really come across an experience where the person sees themselves or other people they knew as a child. And when people cross over and see these other beings, they're often grandparents who are in their 20s or 30s, they're in their prime again. But to be seen in child form is a new one for me to come across, and nothing wrong with that. I like these experiences and the unique perspectives they throw at us. And she says, and Nichole says, she sees this other child running beside her, and this other child is holding her hand, and he's a little blonde-haired boy with blue eyes. That's all we hear about the transition into this other dimension. It doesn't really go into what or who or what this person holding her hand running alongside her is. Doesn't even try to give her opinion on it. It's simply stated that there's a kid running next to her with blonde hair and blue eyes. And then she transitions into this description of what the love is. So here she is running through this grassy field towards a giant sun, and I'm guessing the giant sun sort of symbolizes the light in a way. And this is how she describes what she's feeling as she's running through this field towards the light. She says it's the most intense love I can describe. It's just wave after wave of pure love. Felt like heartbeats of love, one wave after another. Yet in between these heartbeats is still an incredibly high level of feelings of love. She says it's endless, it's eternal, and just makes her feel complete. Any negativity is gone. There's no hate or greed or fear. There's nothing. It's just pure love. And she just wants more of this. So her only thought is to keep running towards the light. And she gets closer and she can feel even more happiness and more joy. And these feelings are just intense. And our mere human language is really insufficient at describing what she is actually feeling. But she gives it a try. She says, the closest thing I can think of on earth that compares to this moment of love, of joy, of freedom from suffering, is, she says, it's when she brought a child into this world. Now, I've never done that. Obviously, I'm a male, but I've never been in a relationship either for when that actually happens. I have never really had that draw, that instinct a lot of people have, that feel drawn into creating a family and having kids, but I'm sure for those people who do and then actually make that happen, it is a pretty blissful, intensely joyful moment. And she says that this feeling that a new mother has towards this child they've just brought into this world is a moment of pure unconditional love. So for all of you who have experienced that, I'm sure you can relate to what she's saying here. And she says this feeling she's getting in this heaven-like dimension is like this feeling of being a mother for the first time and bringing a child into this world. She says, but it's really only a very small fraction of what she's trying to explain. She says what most people say, that words seem so small and really insignificant in comparison to this experience. So it's this place, this dimension that people go to is beyond words. It clearly is inexplicable. What often gets me when I read these experiences and I come across these dimensions where people go to this love-like world is why some people get to go and experience this straight away and others go to a void or a darker type environment. Is it because of the way they live their life? Is that what determines where someone goes when they cross over? Like what is it that is there any reason for someone to go to this love-like realm and for some to go to a darker-like realm? Is death, when it happens for finality, different to what we read in these experiences? Like once there is no coming back, what's that dimension like then? Does it differ from what I read on a weekly basis with these experiences? The one common thing is, though, is when people do go to this other dimension, time seems to stop. There's no such thing as time. So when they do go to a darker void, it feels like they are there for eternity. And that is concerning because obviously eternity is a long time. And I remember one guy I interviewed a few months ago, Dr. Eben Alexander. I never really went into a lot of depth as to what his darkish-like experience was like, but he said exactly that. He said he went to this dark realm. He felt like he was an earthworm that was just moving through this dark, solid mass that kind of had some texture and substance to it, and was exposed to some pretty scary things like just terrible sensations of beings touching him and demonic type. Or I don't know if he used the word demonic, but darker type beings he could hear communicating with him, and it was obviously a pretty scary place to be. But eventually, in his case, he gets rescued, as a lot of people do in these experiences. Eventually, they get out of it. They're not there forever. They're able to leave these darker realms, and when they do, they experience some blissful states like this lady Nichole's experiencing at the moment. So it's interesting that some people go to this light and some people need to go through a bit of darkness in the next dimension before they experience the light. To me, it kind of is possible that when someone does go to a darker realm, it could be a teaching mechanism for how they come back and experience their world as a human, and it could be a bit of a push or nudge towards them trying to embrace love, light, God, source a little bit more in their being as a human, and the darkness they experience is potentially a way of encouraging them to do that, because there's a few famous near-death experiences where this is what happens, and they're just the ones we know about. So there must be many, many people who have experienced these darker light realms and come back to Earth and been encouraged to connect with God a little bit more. So it could be a reminder for them to change their ways or connect more with God. But either way, you seem to be able to get out of these realms eventually. And it's usually when they start to realize that they are connected to something more loving, more full of light, and they need not be in these darker realms anymore. So in this case, though, Nichole doesn't have to worry about that. She goes straight into the light. So she says she's running closer and closer towards this massive sun. And this sun is, for me, symbolizing the light, because as she gets closer and closer to it, she's experiencing more acceptance and more love and more detachment from her earthly life. And she feels totally at ease about everything she's ever done here. It's like the ego slowly starting to melt away the closer she gets to this light, and she's becoming more of the spirit that she is at her core, rather than the human she thought she was at some point of time. It's like this slow transition that the spirit seems to go through in some of these experiences as it embraces more of what it is at its core, and starts detaching a little bit from the environment or experience it's having as a human. She says she just wants to keep running towards this light, and then she suddenly hears her name being called from behind her. And this is that dreaded moment in a near-death experience where she's in this blissful state. She wants to stay there, and it comes in all sorts of forms. Sometimes it'll be a guide asking the person having the experience, do you want to stay or do you want to go back? Sometimes they're told they have to go back. And in her case, she hears a voice from behind her, and this voice, she doesn't say what the voice says. She just says she stops, and she just knows she has a choice. She can stay in this realm, or she can go back to being a human. Usually, in this case, people will want to stay, but for whatever reason, sometimes they willingly decide to come back. Other times, they kind of feel they don't have a choice and are forced back, and sometimes they kind of get persuaded to come back. I don't know why they're given a choice and then forced to come back, but in her case, she says she knew she had a choice, but never remembers actually recalling how she decided to go here. She didn't know if she decided to stay or come back, because either way, the next thing she remembers is there's doctors standing over her, frantically repeating her name. Come on, Nichole. Come on, Nichole. Stay with us. And then the next thing, she's back in her body with intense pain. So I'm just trying to picture her state of mind and the level of frustration you would have here. One second you're in this blissful state, you're losing any connection you have with this human body, your ego, your world, all these negative feelings we experience here on earth are becoming a distant memory. And the next thing you know, you're waking up in this body that is being operated on, and you are in intense pain. And the fear that would come with that is unimaginable. It's almost cruel, isn't it, to think that someone can be in heaven one second and then back in this body that is in immense pain in the next. It doesn't seem right, and I think that's what she says. She just can't get her head around why she was given a glimpse of this other realm and then taken back into this body. And she says this body is in this physical pain that she has never experienced before, and up until now has never experienced again. She says it was like her body was in a vice and they were squeezing it tighter and tighter. So I don't know what they were doing to her, but yeah, it sounds intensely painful, because she mentions that while this feeling is occurring, she kind of has this intuition that the medication to kill the pain has somehow worn off. And she's screaming, I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to come back. She's crying. She's so upset. And she's just blaming the doctors at this point in time for resuscitating her. It's interesting because now we have these experiences pretty common, and it's probably a lot of it's due to the fact that we have improved our medical abilities to resuscitate people. And this is part of the reason a lot of people are able to come back and relive the experiences they've had, because, you know, in the past they would have died, but because of our advancements in medical science, they're able to bring a lot of these people back, and with as they do that, they bring back their stories with them. But obviously, when you go from that peaceful, love-like realm back into this denser, heavier, painful realm, it's going to be a sharp contrast and painful to experience. So she's not only upset because of the pain and being back in her physical body, she's just a little bit just confused by this world. It doesn't seem right to her what it's like on this planet, and she just feels that her graduation day from this planet has been taken from her by these doctors. She was only 25 years old, but this place we're all on right now is very foreign to her after experiencing this love dimension. She feels this is not where she belongs on this planet. She belongs back where she was when she was in this love realm. She says she is a very sensitive person. She was before this experience, and things like the violence and the greed were very nonsensical and foreign to her and totally unnecessary. But after this experience, it goes to the next level, and she really cannot make sense of this world anymore. It's just beyond belief to her. I remember when I had my spiritual awakening, I was a little bit like that. I was, I guess it was a conscious choice to not watch TV or movies for a year, because of the fascination a lot of shows out there have with more violent and I don't know, negative themes. It's like it just became something that I couldn't really do, and sit through a movie like that. But as I have, um, as the years go by, I've become a little bit more accepting and understanding that this is part of the realm that we're on. We are going to be exposed to more negative attributes, and no matter what we do, and obviously you can take some steps to avoid darkness in this place, and I guess TV, news, scary movies is one way to eradicate it, but in the end, there is darkness around every corner and you can't hide from it. So for me, I see what this lady's saying, and I agree with her a lot that it doesn't make sense with there being so much violence and greed on this planet, and it does seem a little bit unnecessary, but at the same time, this is the realm we are in. We choose to come here, we choose to come and experience this. So, um, on one hand, you might want to run away from it, and it might feel wrong, especially after being at a dimension where love is all there is. Seeing the opposite to that is going to be very confronting and going to upset you. But for me personally, I kind of just accepted that now, that this is the way the planet is. We can't run away from it. Obviously, I try and embrace love whenever I can, but it's not an easy task because we're all human, and sometimes we feel that giving our love is not the it's not the easiest path sometimes, because yeah, we all are prone to negativity and feeling down, and life can be tricky, and when you are in one of those negative states, giving out love is pretty difficult. It's almost the opposite of easy. So she says she then fast forwards 20 years, so I guess she's 45 years old now, and she now accepts that she did make this choice to stay on Earth. Because her logic for this is, if she had chosen during her near-death experience to stay in this realm, that's what would have happened. There's no two ways about it. If you choose to stay there when you are given that choice, in her opinion, in her experience, this is what happens, which kind of runs counter to what some people say, like I was talking about before, that when they choose to stay in this realm, their decision to stay is overruled and they're forced to come back. So in her opinion, she says that she must have decided to return to Earth, because if she'd chosen to stay, that's where she would have done. She would have stayed there. And that's what I kind of like to think it would be like. Like, it's your soul's decision at that point in this dimension, at this fork in the road. And your soul's decision is the one that you would think would be the overriding ruler in terms of your own fate, not some guide, not God, just your own personal decision. So I read these things going either way, but in her case, this is how I hope it is anyway, that the soul gets to decide. And she says she's chosen to return to Earth, or her soul. She doesn't really define what part of her makes this decision, but she says she made it anyway, and she reckons she decided to come back to Earth, and the doctors couldn't have prevented, couldn't have saved her if she'd made that decision to stay in this other realm, which is interesting. It kind of makes you wonder who's really in control in a life-threatening situation. Is it someone's soul whose heart stopped and they've stopped breathing? Is it their decision on whether to come back, and the doctors are just secondary to that process, and their resuscitation efforts are irrelevant, really. They're just, um, I don't know. It's interesting that a soul could possibly make that decision and then perhaps influence a life-saving effort on Earth to stay if that is what they chose to do, to come back to Earth. Did they? Um, well, you hear in these experiences when someone comes close to death and they decide to come back, there's often a doctor nearby and miraculously an ambulance just around the corner and a hospital 5 minutes down the road. Yeah, it's often these series of coincidences that seem to um, help their return to Earth. And I don't know, is that a coincidence or is that some degree of planning from the other dimension to facilitate a return, or is it all just a fluke? I don't know. But anyway, so she's decided to come back to Earth, and she reckons she was given this glimpse of this love light dimension. So she could be carry on her life journey knowing what we are truly made of. Isn't it lovely that some people get this glimpse of what this realm is like, and this knowing that we are truly made of that stuff that is in this loving realm, and are able to come back to this realm, this physical world, in this physical body, and live their life with that deep knowing that life here doesn't really matter, because in the end we go back to this other realm where we are accepted. There's no negativity. There's just pure contentment in being, and no connection to the egoic cravings we have on this planet. And it's great for us too, because we can read these experiences now, and although there's a lot of us who have never actually experienced what these people having a near-death experience talk about, we can read what has happened to them, and I personally believe what they are saying is true. And although words, as we're told week after week, are not sufficient in describing exactly what this other realm is like, we certainly get a decent taste of it just purely by the repetition of this word love and acceptance and fear-free environment that week after week I read about and talk about. So if this isn't the case, then I find it difficult to believe, because I've had I think we all can reach this realm a little bit, not to this extent, just in our human life. When we're really loving life, when we're really loving the moment, when we're really present, we're able to get a small piece, I think, of what this realm is like right here on Earth. We don't need to die, we don't need to meditate, we don't need to jump out of our body. We just need to love what's right in front of us, and we get this small taste. I think it's just a small taste of what this other dimension I read about every week is like. So next time you are loving, just loving being wherever you are, doesn't matter what you're doing. Next time you're loving that moment, just try to remember what you're experiencing right then and there is a minuscule percentage of what it is truly like in this other dimension, but it is a taste of this other dimension nonetheless. And it is always good to be in that state. It just feels fantastic. It's kind of difficult for me to explain, but when I get into this state of loving the moment, loving the whatever's in front of me, it kind of feels as though I'm transcending this dimension a little bit. I sort of get these sensations where the mind will start to label or explain what is happening, and then or try to bring in some judgments or some kind of negative influence on the experience of love that I'm having. And when I'm in that loving state, I'm fully aware of that, and I'm able to just brush the mind away and just experience this love. It's almost other, almost out of bodily and out of body like. But yeah, some of you would probably know what I'm talking about. It's hard to put into words, but it is almost other dimension. It's like being in another dimension just for a brief amount of time. So she says that she has had this experience to know that love is all there really is. Isn't it incredible that we are part of this universe that is made of love? It's mind blowing. It's wonderful to know, but it's also frustrating, isn't it? Because our experience is so punctuated with various feelings and emotions, and love is one of them. And love feels really good, but it's not the experience we have for the whole time. It's punctuated with lots of darker type experiences. And that is why I'm sure we are here. We're here to have this disconnection from the love that we come from in order, I guess, to be a little bit more appreciative of it and to understand it better. Because we come from this realm where love is all there is, and we need to, I guess, us as souls have this craving to, I don't know, be more grateful for it or to experience the opposite of it, and that is why we're here, I guess. So Nichole says that a return to love is not a cliche. Like going in the afterlife, when we cross over to this other dimension, this is what we return to. It's love. It truly is love. Is what we are made of. We hear this all the time, and it's hard for us to understand, because love for us it's a feeling, it's an experience, and we're in these physical human bodies that are entities that um, walk around, and how can we actually be something that isn't a physical entity but rather a feeling or an experience, which is what I figure love is. How can you be that thing? It's hard to get your head around when you are in this physical realm and you are in this physical body, and it is so separate to what a feeling is. Because I don't know, like love, love is love an entity? What? Yeah, like how do you quantify it? And I guess that's just my human mind trying to put labels and words to something that is pretty difficult to actually define. So Nichole's takeaway from this experience is she now just wants to raise the awareness of how powerful collective love is, and when we're connected and working together and loving each other, this is when we work best. And she says, look, it's as simple as this. It's what the entire universe is made up of. And we use all these different words like God, Jesus, Allah to actually define what, you know, to they're just alternate labels for love, she says. So this is her goal. This is her mission now, just to help others to be love. It's as simple as that. Her daily mantra is, "I love, therefore I am," which is I like it. It's a different take on one of those more famous "I think, therefore I am" takes, which I think was from some philosopher about 300 years ago. So she's taken out the word think and put love in there. I love, therefore I am. So this is her whole being now. It's to love, and it's a good way to be, isn't it? If you're able to use that every moment of the day, you can imagine that life would be a lot of fun if you can truly be in that state for that period of time and use it as a shield from negativity. So because of this experience, she says she's not really scared of death. She's actually looking forward to death and returning to this realm of love. But in the meantime, she hopes to share the love she touched in this other realm with everyone she can here on earth while she's still here too. So I'd be interested to know how she actually practices this "I love, therefore I am." Can we all incorporate that a little bit more? And what does that look like? How do you love more? Like, what is it? Is it just being more selfless? Is it serving others? Is it loving your family more? Is it making more sacrifices? Is it just being as nice as possible to whatever situation is right in front of you? And that doesn't mean there has to be another person there. You can love yourself as well, I guess. And that's one way of raising your own personal vibrations and experiencing life in an easier way. But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you got something out of this week. It was a short experience, and that doesn't matter. Often the short ones are even better because they get straight to the point, and we're able to talk about love more, which is what I like to do. So yeah, thanks for listening. I love you, and I will talk to you next week. Goodbye.